Hey everybody, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com, back to do another initial analysis and thoughts on the Steelers' critical 28-21 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals this Sunday. And yeah, it was a big one for sure. We talked about how important this three-game stretch, including today's game, was going to be in defining and shaping the Steelers' 2018 season. It wouldn't make it, it wouldn't break it in the way that the season would be over. But if you can go at least 2-1 over these next three games, because they're all AFC North opponents, you're in a good spot. If you don't, then you're really fighting and clawing and needing a lot of help the rest of the way while playing some very good teams the second half of the schedule. And obviously that would have been a very difficult road. So Steelers get off on the right foot with a big win over the Bengals, the first place Bengals, to put Cincinnati at 4-2. Steelers go to 3-2-1. And so yeah, it was a wild one. It was back and forth. Steelers made plenty of mistakes, and this one could have been easily a Steelers loss. It could have easily been a Steelers relatively comfortable win, and it ends up being a nail-biter down to the very end. So you kind of had the whole gamut in this one, but Pittsburgh hangs on the 31-yard touchdown from Ben to AB with 15 seconds left, I think 10 by the time AB walked into the end zone, and that was his game winner, which was a great play call. There is some debate whether that was Fietner's call or whether that was Ben adjusting stuff. I know there was some pre-snap adjustment, but I didn't know if that was planned or not. Regardless of that play was in the playbook, it was the perfect response to what the Bengals were doing, which is running cover zero and all-out blitz, where it's man-to-man coverage all around. There's no safety help. You get the stack release from AB running under Justin Hunter, creates that free release for AB, and the corner is trailing, and there's just nothing you can do about it. Ben gets the ball out in time, and it's a play where either that works really well and you get the ball out, or you get sacked because those linebackers were coming free, and the Steelers just did not have enough guys to block because, again, it was an all-out blitz. But start with the offense. Ben was good, not great. I think Josh Carney from the site, summed it up well. He said that, Ben doesn't always have to be perfect, and sometimes that's good enough, and that's kind of how this one went. But he made the big throws late and got the ball out of his hand when he needed to, and the throw to Juju that got the Steelers in field goal range, and then obviously the play to AB, getting them in the right spot and executing, even if it wasn't a high degree of difficulty throw, because it wasn't, but just reading the coverage, executing, and just kind of moving pieces around to get the matchup in the situation that you want. So, again, good enough from Ben for sure. The run game, James Conner doing his thing again, running hard, running decisive. Pass protection was there. Did a little bit as a receiver, getting involved in the screen game. Even some plays where he was supposed to stay in and block, and he even whiffed on one block and turned around and Ben found them. So you just see that trust and that ability to be on the same page. Even when things go wrong, you can still try to figure out a way to salvage the play. So that was impressive. I have to give all the credit in the world to this offensive line, though. I don't think we're talking about the starting five for the Steelers as much as we should. And we all recognize that it's a talented starting five, and I think most people in the national media consider this a top 5 offensive line, and I'm sure most people in Pittsburgh probably would push it to about a top 3 offensive line. But wow, they've done a phenomenal job, especially really these last 3 weeks, but the last 2 weeks in terms of the run game. The Baltimore game was kind of an exception because of game circumstance and things like that, but the last 2 weeks, James Conner's been able to rush for well over 5 yards a carry, 5.8 today in the win over Cincinnati. And Ben hasn't been sacked the last 2 weeks. His last 3 games, his last 122 pass attempts, probably 125-ish dropbacks. He's been sacked once and hit only 6 times. I'll say that again. Last 3 games, roughly 125 dropbacks, 1 sack, 6 quarterback hits. That's it. And they've played some good pass rush teams and some good defensive lines. Baltimore had 11 sacks on Marcus Mariota today. The Falcons have a talented D-line that granted had Grady Jarrett out, but still had Tack McKinley and Vic Beasley and some other interior guys that are playing well. And the Bengals defensive line is really solid with a deep core of guys that they rotate in. They get guys fresh. They move guys around. And of course you have superstars like Geno Atkins, and they've all been shut down and shut out. So this offensive line, certainly the engine for the Steelers team. I just can't praise them enough for the job that they've done in opening up lanes in the run game across the board. But Marquise Pouncey, especially out in space today, was notable. And the job the tackles have done in pass protection. Gilbert and Villanueva and Tomlin talked about that in his post-game press conference. So just remember where it starts. It starts with the offensive line. It starts with the tight ends blocking. And that's kind of really feeding and generating all the offense here. So Really good stuff from them. Juju making combative catch that set up a touchdown. His start was a little rocky with the misjudging the vertical ball and dropping a pass on third down the next drive. But shows a lot of mental toughness, a lot of focus, and ability to kind of have that short-term memory that you need for a guy that again is still only 21 years old, and he's making those kind of plays in big moments and bouncing back. Really impressive, really special guy for sure. Tight end Vance McDonald, doing his thing as a receiver. So hard to bring down. He's fighting for everything, just a real punishing type player. And as the CBS broadcast noted, he's really the number 3 receiver on this team behind AB and Juju. It's not Washington. It's not anybody else. It's Vance McDonald, which, hey, I'm okay with. He's a big weapon. He's like a receiver, a big receiver who put the hurt on you. So, good job there. Red zone offense started off good, 2-2. Then it faded. Again, like I said, this could have been a comfortable win had the Steelers been able to execute some of the red zone and goal to go situations. Not getting that touchdown after the Connor non-touchdown challenge situation was really disappointing. You go 3 plays, Connor gets stuffed, incompletion to Jesse James on the corner, and then I think a third down run that was failed again, I believe is what happened there. So that was disappointing. He settled for 3. If you get a touchdown on either of those possessions, you're up 2 scores, and this game doesn't have to end the way that it had to end for the Steelers to win. But the red zone offense as a whole has still been really good, and you have a bye week now to kind of maybe add some stuff and figure things out. So that's what you're going to be looking for from this offense. Defensively, it's a mixed bag. You give up 21 points total. I mean, that's not terrible. You don't create any turnovers, though. That's not good. Neither team had a turnover in this game, which is really rare for any sort of Steelers-Bengals game, any sort of AFC North game. It's just the pass rush was, inconsistent. The edge guys continued to struggle. I just didn't feel like guys were defeating their blocks very well. It got a little bit better as the game went on. Tua gets a first sack of the year, which was a great rep by him. Javon Hargrave picks up his 3rd sack of the season. So you're just looking for more there. Andy Dalton throws the ball 42 times. I just didn't feel like the pressure was at where it should be, where it needs to be for this team. But again, situational football, I think they did, a good enough job. Obviously, the possession at the end of the game to give up that touchdown was super disappointing. And to be honest, the Steelers, I think, got lucky with. I think the Bengals had 3 drops in the first half. AJ Green started off that game really poor. I thought Joe Hayden did an okay job against AJ Green, but Green could have definitely had more against him. So, an up and down performance. I think across the board, but I just thought that some situational stuff they did good enough, getting off the field on third down, making some stands in the second half. Now again, late in the game it kind of fell apart. Not really surprising, unfortunately. But 21 points against the Bengals offense, I think, came into this one 4th in points per game. Now, granted, some of that was some special teams and defensive plays, but the Steelers special teams didn't always help Pittsburgh by giving them some short fields to work with. So there is a little bit of context that needs to be included in the stat and the overall performance. Artie Burns, I just think you just can't trust Artie Burns right now. And I'm going to have an article that's either gone up or will go up soon on Steelers Depot that's going to break down his technique issues. So the physical talent, obviously, is not the problem. And I don't think it's an issue of want-to or desire or even football really intelligence. I just think it's a technique thing where he's just not getting. There's too many mental breakdowns there, and I just think it's in the moment he just struggles with some of that stuff. Obviously he does, and I think you have to go to Cody Sensabaugh full time now instead of doing this cornerback rotation. I mean, you can't been rotating these corners for 3 weeks now. I think I think post Chiefs game, so. You have to pick a guy, stick with him, and let him be able to grow and develop and get all those reps. And I don't think you can have this rotation happen forever. You have the bye week to kind of reset, review, and adjust. And I think coming out of the bye, you need to kind of have a starting right cornerback. And you could make changes down the road. Of course, it's not set in stone. Guys still got to compete. Guys have to play well. But I think Sensabaugh has to be the guy, although he's not physically as gifted as Artie Burns. I think you trust him more. I think his technique's better, and that's who I'd be going with if I was Mike Tomlin. We'll see what happens. But, pass rush, you want to see that better. Dupree and Watt, when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. and it's been bad too often, and more often than it being good. Watts really come in bunches, but he'll be quiet too often, and Chicolo just really is not a number 3 guy, not a good enough pass rusher. I think a really excellent special teamer. I think a guy that has a lot of moves and a lot of energy, but I just not someone you're going to count on to give you much pressure. So, really nothing you can do at this point about it, but that's kind of where the Steelers stand. Special teams, obviously, was less than impressive. The kick coverage has been really good coming into this game. They've been one of the best teams in the league in terms of their kick coverage. The punt coverage had been a little bit shaky, at least in the early going, the Kansas City game in particular. But obviously, this game, things fell apart. You get 2 really strong returns by Alex Erickson, who's a strong return guy to Bengals credit. But I know in that second return, coming out of the half that Erickson had, there was not any stunts or twists that Danny Smith tends to run in these situations to try to get guys free and confuse the return team's blocking scheme. So I'm curious if that was the case on the first one or not. But just not good enough there. One bad punt from Jordan Berry, especially some penalties on special teams, which you just can't have. So it's been a little up and down. I still contend it's been a lot better than people think and expect. And when things get bad, they get highlighted, but no one looks at the good plays that generally go unnoticed in special teams. But I'll save that rant for another time. I know it was not good enough today, and that's all you really have to say about that. But bottom line, Steelers get the victory. They go 3-2-1. They're above 500, entering the bye. You get a big win over an AFC North opponent. If you lose this one, not only do you drop below 500, Bengals now go to 5-1, and they're definitely in the driver's seat going forward. In hindsight, the Ravens win today, so they go to 4-2 on the season. So you need to keep pace and keep up with these guys. And like I said, these next 2 weeks are going to be critical. You got Cleveland and Baltimore coming up here. If you can get both wins there, that's fantastic. But you certainly need at least one. Obviously, you'd rather have it over Baltimore over Cleveland if you had to pick. But you have to go at least 1-1. If you go 2-0, then you're in a really good spot. And with these Mike Tomlin teams historically being excellent the second half of the year, I think the last 4 years his team's gone 6-2 and better, the second half of the season. Last year they were 7-1. Historically that says you're going to be put in a position to really succeed and have an excellent chance, as you would expect, to win the AFC North. But we'll see what happens. We'll review the tape for Steelers Depot. A ton of articles coming. Really excited to share that with you guys. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions or comments about this game, and whether you're listening to us on YouTube, Steelers Depot, or following me on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.